Today on Working with Todoist, I'm going to reveal my 2019 setup. Hello and welcome to the 200th episode of Working with Todoist. My name is Pullein, and yeah, I can't believe we've actually done 200 videos on Todoist. So if you've started right from episode 1, which was round about 3 years ago, and you've got your way all the way to 200, well, I'm going to give you a huge congratulations. That's a lot of videos and a lot of time, and you should be an expert in Todoist by now. So anyway, on to this week's episode. And what I'm going to do in this week's episode is I'm going to reveal my 2019 early setup. However, I'm going to make a confession. I did review my late 2018 setup, which I published last October, and I noticed that actually very little has changed. I suppose what I've done is I've been consolidating my setup, and now it is working beautifully. I very rarely miss anything. I'm human, I do miss some things occasionally, and that's usually because I didn't collect something when I should have done. And it just works so smoothly with the pinned favorites in the setup that I've done. Now, I've covered a lot of that over the last 6 months, and if you want to go back over the last 6 months, you will see that I have covered a lot in the pinned favorites. So without any further delay, let me take you into Todoist and show you my early 2019 setup. Right, so here we go. First thing I should point out is whenever I open Todoist, it always opens up at my dashboard view. Now, my dashboard view has not changed at all. Probably now for about 2 years I've been using the same dashboard view. And essentially my dashboard view is the start screen. Now, to change your start screen, you can change this however way you like to do it. And essentially you just go into General in your settings and you'll see Start Page, which is right there. You can start with your start page and you can create a custom query. You can actually start your page from any of your projects or anything you like. I have a custom query, and my custom query is P inbox, comma, overdue, comma, today, comma, and waiting for. Now you can change that order. It will always come up in the order that you set it, and you can look at that however way you want to do it. Now, I've always preferred to have my dashboard view with my inbox at the top, because there's some things I do occasionally get thrown in there that is maybe going to be urgent. There's nothing in there at the moment, but there are a few things that I may be going to be urgent. Now, what I do here is I then have my today view, and as you can see, my today view, I've got my one objective left for today. I've actually, if you look up here, I've actually clicked off 3 tasks already this morning. So my today's focus started with 9 tasks today. And I did have 2 objectives. One objective has now been done. I've just got 1 remaining objective for the day, which is to prepare this week's newsletter. And then those are my various things. And then I have what I would normally call my routines. As you can see, I've got, generally these are all routines. I've got scheduled tweets on Twitter, which is an online thing. But everything else is there in my today view. So although I talk about the 2+8 prioritization system, remember that's a prioritization system. It doesn't necessarily mean that those are the only tasks that I need to do that day. Those are the 10 tasks that I'm going to do that day. Routines they can be delayed, or some of them can be delayed. So I've actually got a total of 16. If you include the 3 tasks that I've already completed today, that's going to mean I had 19 tasks for today. And I'm going to say that probably 98% of the time I get everything completed each day, because most of these routine tasks, like check email action today folder, things like that, these are all real genuine things that I always do before I go to bed. So when I start the day, I go into my today's objective, and nothing from October last year has really changed here. I start off with my today's objectives, which in this case I've just got the one left, and then I spend the rest of the day in my today's focus, and that's why I have the today's objective up there. The reason why I've separated that out is that when I look at that first thing in the morning, there are only 2 tasks in there. It means my brain isn't going to go numb. I'm going to feel motivated. These are the 2 things I'm definitely going to get done today. And in that situation, as a percentage, 99% of the time, I do get them done. There are occasionally, very rarely, maybe once a month where I might not do one. But on the whole, my objectives are completed each day. And then I spend most of the day in my today's focus. Next actions, if I have time. And I was considering changing next actions to if I have time, but I quite like the idea next actions. It's got a little bit more of an energy about it. And of course, then I've got my golden 10. And essentially my golden 10 at the moment, because I'm recording this late morning, it's still showing today's focus tasks. But those will obviously clear out during the day, and then I'm left with tomorrow. Now tomorrow, as you can see there, is Friday. And on Friday, I intentionally keep the number very low, simply because it's my recording day and I don't want to be worrying about tasks. So I make sure that I don't include many tasks for tomorrow. And as you can see, one of the objectives for tomorrow is complete YouTube video recording, which actually I'm doing today. So when I clear that off, that means I will be left with the 2, because I do need to go to the bank tomorrow to change my KLM flight payment details, and that's all done. So how am I organizing my projects? Let's go into projects, and what you'll see here is that again hasn't really changed at all since October last year. Work projects now, there are quite a few. There's 3. I think there was only 1 last October, and that's simply because these really are the things that I'm focused on this quarter. And that's the way I'm looking at this now. I tend to hold my projects per quarter. Now, right at the beginning of April, so I've got 3, and these are the 3 projects that I'm going to be focused on in terms of work over the next 3 months, because I really want to get these done. And then going to my personal one, I've just got my trip to the UK and Ireland, which is coming up. My new computer setup, which is interesting enough, I've only got 1 in there, and it kind of made me laugh when I saw it, because as most of you have been following this channel for a while, you probably know that I am a huge James Bond fan. And as I was transferring my movies over to my new iTunes library, I noticed that the only James Bond movie that I do not have in my collection at the moment is the original 1968, I think it was, or 1967, Casino Royale, starring Woody Allen. And I'm so sad that I don't have that movie. So it's still there. It's actually in for my next actions, because if I do have time, it's going to come up. So until that is done, I'm afraid it's not going to be completed, but it pretty much is completed. UPW Singapore 2019, I'm actually going to the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within in Singapore later this year in September. So there's a few things that I need to organize in that. And I've got my Range Rover Velar, which still hasn't been bought, simply because my wife still hasn't finished her master's degree and we can't get it until after that. And KonMari is because I'm KonMariing, organising our home at the moment, and so I've got that split up into my various rooms in the house. Now what you'll notice is my home folders are all blue and my work are all red. I do color code things very well. And then areas of focus have really, I kind of simplified that out a little bit. I've got personal, my CPP and my FES. So like in CPP, there's a lot of them in there. Teacher, mentor, writer, speaker, online courses, and so on. And these are where I keep all the various things related to either my podcast. So recently, if you've been following my podcast, you'll know that recently I've had David Allen on the podcast. And when I was in communication with him and setting up the dates, then of course there was quite a few tasks in there. What's left in the podcast now is very little, It's just the blog podcast, write podcast, script, record podcast. So these now are just these action steps that come in, but it did have a few more earlier this week. And I'm still using the what, why, how. I have actually probably changed that a little bit, but the what, why, how is what am I trying to achieve. And now I've created that as a drop down because I don't need to see that every day. And it's the same for pretty much all of these. You'll see I've got the what, why, how in all of these, and they all have various things in there, and it's just the drop down menu so that if I'm not feeling motivated, I can just drop it down. When I did this in October last year, they were up front and center, and I was having to scroll down to get to the action, so I decided to make that into drop down. So if I do feel I need a bit of motivating or I need to know my why, then I can just go in there and do that. And FES hasn't really changed at all. And my routines folders, I moved it for just before October last year. I had moved my routines folder to down below because I want them to show up in my today view from the actual at the bottom of the list, not the top of the list if they're not flagged. Someday maybe it's still there, of course, and I just drop stuff in there that I might want to do. And now the additional one, which is the OPA system. Now I am very, very, very curious about Tony Robbins' OPA system, or the RPM method. And so what I'm doing at the moment is I'm going through the workbook, which I have a copy, and I am building out the system as per the notebook. So in there I haven't actually added anything yet, but I've picked up the 5 areas, which is physical, emotional, financial, family, spiritual, and then in work, career. I haven't actually developed that yet, but these are the ones that I'm starting to develop. And as I go through the workbook, I'm currently sketching out everything in my Evernote, but I will start maybe moving things over to Todoist once I've completed the notebook and added all the notes and things that I want to add and work out all the tasks. So this is just an experiment that I'm doing at the moment. It's kind of like a little bit of a hobby project, but if I do finally develop OPA and I do get it working really, really well, I will do an episode on that later this year. And that's essentially where I am. I mean, if I just close out my projects, what you'll see is my labels haven't changed pretty much. I mean, I've color coded them. I do review these quite regularly. I've got one for office, which is completely useless because I don't have an office. I have a home office, I suppose. Education is something that I'm obviously working on because I am still studying Korean. So all that inside of in there. And in my filters, I haven't actually gone into filters for a very long time. There's a lot of obsolete filters now, but the main thing here is this area up here. Daily rituals is not something I use. I use that for a demo so I can clean that out. I don't have that, but essentially this is where my filters are. But to be honest, the 4 filters that I'm using are the top 4. I could clean everything else out, which I might do when I'm on my trip to the UK later this month. And there you go. That is my current Todoist setup. It hasn't changed very much at all since October because as I mentioned back in October, this pinned favorites has been a real game changer for me because it means that when I do my weekly review, I can plan out when I'm going to do stuff, I can add the flags, and so that I'm not having to mess around with too much organizing. If you follow the C.O.D system, collect, organize, and do, you will remember that the goal is to get as quick as you can with the collection and as quick as you can with the organizing, so you can spend more of your time in the doing phase, which really is what productivity is all about, doing what needs to be done right now. And I just want to have that comfort to know that when I am doing, everything is taken care of. Well, hopefully you've got some insights in that. If you do have any questions at all about my setup, then please feel free to add your comment below. I do answer all comments, particularly if I can see them. Sometimes they get lost, but if they do, and I do apologize if I've missed any of you, but I do answer all the comments that I added into my YouTube video. So please, if you have any questions, just add it in the comments below. And if you've got any kind of value from watching this episode, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, oh, please subscribe. Okay, it just remains for me now to wish you all a very, very productive week. Thank you for watching this video. Now, if you want to take your productivity to a higher level, then get yourself enrolled in my 2019 edition of Your Digital Life 2.0 online. It is a complete, comprehensive productivity and time management course, and it's a course that will take you to levels of productivity you have only ever dreamt of before. It shows you how to build your very own C.O.D system, collect, organize and do. It shows you how to create the folder structure, how to build into your goals, into your daily to-do list. It has everything. And not only that, you will get a free copy of Your Digital Life 2.0, the book. You also get a free workbook, and you get access to all the slides that are used in the course. It is incredible value. I want to see you in that course. If you are serious about becoming productivity, then please join me in Your Digital Life 2.0, the 2019 edition. Thank you very much for watching this video.